But the physical presence of the master is important, no? If it is only for online.
It depends. I don't know. In my experience, it was necessary. My transformation could not have happened without the physical presence of three people in my life. One, my mother, because at the time of her awakening, I was there in the same house as her son and was part of the whole process she went through, as well as who she was before the awakening and after. Because never once has my mother raised her voice in my 51 years. So I realized that this is rare when people started telling me that. I thought it was the norm for all mothers when I was young. So that was the first physical presence. The second was Eckhart Tolle, the author, who was a catalyst for me. It is only when I reflect back at my first meeting, physical meeting with him in November 1999, when there was no satsang. I just sat in a room for an hour with him and talked nonsense with him. We both talked nonsense because we had no agenda. I had not read his book. I was not really on the spiritual path. We spoke about Hong Kong. We spoke about the people in Hong Kong, the shopping energy in Hong Kong, mundane stuff, so to speak. But when I look back, 20 years ago that meeting took place, I realized a transmission has happened. Because when I walked out of that room and my sister asked me how was it, and I said pretty much the usual chatter with a bloke. But the attention, the respect, the silence in that room, and honoring whatever we spoke about without judging it, that stayed in my mind. And thereafter, I was blessed that we had holidays with him wherever he would give talks. For 2-3 days after the talks, my sister's small group, I would be a pylon, and we would walk in, whether it was UK, whether it was Canada. We would spend time together. He was not fond of talking at all. So it was generally walks in nature with him, with nothing to talk about. And I remember I was very fond of medieval Europe. So when we went to Glastonbury, I looked up the net and found a tour guide who would take us to the ancient ruins, churches. It was fascinating for me. And something very unusual happened, which is interesting. For 2 weeks before my trip to Glastonbury, in my dreams and when I woke up, I would hear the name Pendragon, which was completely a name not known to me. And so I looked up the internet, found out what it meant. When I was in Glastonbury, we went to the ruins of the most ancient church there. And we stood at a grave, and the tour guide said, "You have come to the most sacred site in Glastonbury. And this is the grave of King Arthur Pendragon." Now, this was important for me not because of King Arthur, because it showed to me that this trip was destined to happen. That was the thing. Not that I'm special, I got this in the dream, none of that. And it was on this trip that when I told Eckhart, I found a tour guide who will take us to all these sites and places. And he looked at me with disappointment. He said, "I'm tired of names and places and centuries and eras. But I have an option for you. Say no to the guide and let me be the tour guide. And from King Arthur's grave up to the Glastonbury Tor, you come across something called the Chalice Wells, the springs, all in the lore of Glastonbury. The climb up the Glastonbury Tor, which if you look on the net is like a shivling. And the Archangel Michael Tower on the top, which is supposedly the gateway for souls to go to the other world. He didn't say a word. And when we were up, he said, "How did you like the tour?" So, number 2 was transmission through presence, which was very clear had happened. If I had read his book, which the world has read, I don't think it would have happened for me the way other people have been impacted. Transmission number 3, when I met my teacher, I didn't feel he was my teacher because I felt what he was saying was so obvious that it's ridiculous that people go to listen to all this. That was my honest view. But the second Sunday, when I went to him, and I only bowed down and touched his feet because others were doing it. No other reason. But when I got up and he knocked me on the head and he said, "Is this your second Sunday?" I said, "Yes." "You came last Sunday?" "Yes." He said, "Be very careful. This will become your Sunday church." And I said, "What does this man mean? I'm really not interested in what he says." And I went for 9 years till he passed on, including the day he passed on, which was a Sunday. I must have reached 4 minutes after he passed away because his brother called me and said, "My brother has gone." Now, in my case, if I had read books of Ramesh, Eckhart, my mother, it would not have happened. So when Ramesh mentioned in his talks that his awakening happened through Nisargadatta Maharaj and for him also it was necessary, then yes, the physical presence is necessary. But it is case to case. For other people, it may not be necessary. Let's say a devotee of Ramana Maharshi or the mother of Pondicherry. It may not be necessary. But Osho was quite right. I mentioned this to somebody, I don't know who. You see, the ego does not break with a guru who is no longer in the body. This is Osho saying it, not me. Because when the ego surrenders and bows down to another form, what is actually happening is the bowing down is not happening to a form. It is happening to consciousness. But the pride of the ego, according to Osho, the final break of the coconut happens in that surrender, which is what Shirdi Sai Baba said. Also, he was very clear that a living guru is required for a genuine surrender.